Hi, this is Stu Gosling from Together 2012.
Yeah, hi and good afternoon. This is Robin Surgener from Together 2012 up here in Sutton Coldfield.
Hi, it's Julie Newman in East London.
We're in Canning Town, and is Josh joining us from Birmingham as well?
He looks, believe it or not, like he just got out of the shower. Hold
Fair
on,
enough.
hold on.
Hello.
Oh, look.
Now, I'm trying to work out why I've got some.
We're great. Everything sounds lovely at this end.
Squeeze over a smooch.
Right, sorry about that. We were getting everything playing back again in the background, which is just one of the mysterious mysteries of the internet. I believe on Monday, Robin, you talked about internet magic.
I did indeed.
I know there's a big gap between theory and practice, but yeah, sometimes when you do something for the fifth time and it suddenly works, you do kind of think, well, maybe there is some magic there. I see Josh has just come out of the virtual swimming pool, which I think is
Yes.
absolutely right for a swimmer. So this is Together Unlocked, the anarchic, slightly shambolic, but will be like the BBC by the end of isolation show from Together 2012. We're a Paralympic cultural legacy organisation based in Newham, which was the main London 2012 host borough. We've been going since 2013 after our supposedly one off volunteer festival to celebrate the Paralympics locally turned into what became a kind of unstoppable machine. Everybody asked us to carry on and not just run festivals and screenings and exhibitions and so on, but also a year round outreach program, which is now our clubs program funded by the Lottery Community Fund. While our artistic program is funded by Arts Council England, and a big thanks to them both for continuing to fund us and being flexible, which means we've been able to take part of the clubs program and artistic program online today. So we're in Canning Town in Newham. We're locked down, well, for longer than the duration, really, because we're on that government list. And I was quite surprised to find out that I was on the government list from an email from a supermarket. But I know we're all working together very closely with the NHS and the DWP at the moment. But thank you, Iceland, because I was beginning to think that I wasn't. So tell us a bit more about your situation in Birmingham, Robin and Josh.
Okay, I mean, we're the same. I mean, as for those familiar with the program, we are actually a family of 4 people, all of whom are disabled, have varying, interesting selection of impairments, which obviously I shall not go into. But we do make an interesting troop often. You know, I think I'm like Daddy Duckling and Tracy's Mummy Duckling, and then Josh is not quite
Not
so
enamoured with the
not-
analogy.
Yeah, no, yeah, well,
Yes, Josh is now the designated adult, I imagine.
yeah, maybe,
Potentially.
or anything that rhymes with duckling, maybe.
And tell us more about your situation, Josh, because you're not usually at home in Birmingham anymore, are you?
No, I'm a PhD student up in Sheffield the majority of the time. So I was embracing my student nature and having a nap halfway during the afternoon, which is why I had to have a last minute shower. So yeah, it's an odd time, kind of being away from uni and kind of not really having anything going on at the moment. So
Yeah, and I think that was going to be one of our topics today because the schools would have gone back. And I think this is quite a timely moment to remember to do our audio description for visually
I was
impaired.
just going to say exactly that.
So I'm in my late 50s with short red tenured hair, which of course is not quite as short as it was a month ago, but is definitely shorter than it will be by the end of isolation. I'm wearing a short sleeved purple t shirt, and in yellow writing, it says, "We know inclusion works." And that is the t shirt of a very wonderful organisation called the Alliance for Inclusive Education. I was partly wearing it because I spent this morning in a Zoom conference with the Reclaiming Our Futures Alliance, ROFA. And that's a national organisation of grassroots-led disabled people's organisations and groups. It has no funding, but it has had a lot of support from Inclusion London. So thank you to them for organising that conference. And of course, one of the issues that came up is what's happening to disabled children and young people during the kind of things that are going on with schools. We know that households containing disabled people are much less likely to have home internet access. So that's obviously a big barrier to start with. We were pleased to see, I think, kind of nationally, that the government is intending to provide laptops, particularly to young people in need. But I don't think Newham will be unique in the fact that very few of our young people have, well, you could probably tell us more about this, Robin, but what used to be known as a statement, and I think is now known as an education and health something or other plan. And usually, I think the average in London is about just over 3% of our young people have one of these plans or statements, but in Newham, only 0.7% do. And that's a drum we've been banging for quite some time because there's a lot of links between young disabled people not having their needs met properly, being formally or informally excluded from school, being groomed by gangs, getting into trouble. And of course, we also sadly have a very big gang problem here and problem with young people dying. So we are very concerned that not having these plans means that it's now going to be almost impossible to identify those young people. So I think, you know, there's different issues. We had the actor Eve Smith on the show on Monday talking about the problems she faces in year 13 of college because she should be finishing her college and finishing her auditions to do drama courses. And that's all kind of either gone into Zoom or gone into the ether. Have you had any more news, Josh, on what's happening with students?
I, in terms of kind of friends that I have that are kind of undergraduate students, I know a few of them have had to kind of change their dissertation plans into kind of questionnaires and surveys. And then I know from kind of chatting to colleagues, some of the students that were doing more kind of data based in terms of kind of numbers research are having to basically be given random or kind of made sets of numbers. There's some kind of very complicated maths behind the scenes that gives them, and they have to kind of write their final year university projects on this essentially made up set of data, which I think is something if you'd kind of planned, from experience, that kind of final year project is something that you spend, at least a year and a half planning and thinking and writing. And it really becomes a thing of kind of ownership. It's something you're quite proud of when you finish it. And then to kind of have that taken away almost and kind of write it based on something you're given, I think is probably going to be quite difficult for some students.
Yeah, I suspect the students that will find it easiest are the people who are just starting. I was quite coincidentally with my own PhD, which was many years ago. I was saying to somebody the other day, the very first week of my very first term, somebody published a book about the very same subject using the very same title as my MA dissertation. And that could have all been the end of everything. But in fact, it really pushed me to do something different and take the same material further, which meant for my sins, I ended up producing the very first PhD thesis as a website back in 1997 with film and photography and all sorts of elements that I just wouldn't have thought of. So for me, she says slightly bitterly with all the debt still 20 years later, and of course PhD debts never gets cancelled out. But yeah, I think for that it was a real push, whereas it's just much more difficult to be flexible later on. Julie, I'm going to pass over to you for a bit of audio description, and then gentlemen, either you can do your own or we will do it for you.
Thanks. I'm wearing glasses. I have a black polo shirt on. I have silver and gold hair.
Very
And a
succinct.
beautiful smile. And the glasses are, I think, kind of dark green with interesting light green bits. I'm one of those people who I'm sure are not alone in the fact that I need to change my glasses quite regularly at the moment, and I didn't get them changed in time. So I'm kind of seeing more and more out of one eye, which is interesting and perhaps all I need to be seeing at the moment. So let us have a bit of audio description from Birmingham, including what's behind you and where you're sitting.
Oh, you go first on you then.
Yeah, so I'm 24. I'm wearing an England rugby shirt, and I do have blonde hair, but it's currently slightly wetter than intended. So hopefully it will dry over the course of the show and go back to its normal colour rather than the kind of drowned rat style that I'm sporting at the moment, having just jumped out of the shower. So
Is that it?
yeah,
Oh, okay. And he's got a ginger beard for everyone who wants to hate him. Now,
blonde hair though, which is the important thing.
so over to me, and I'm just jealous really because I've actually shaved today. I've broken the tradition and shaved. I have kind of grey and white, mostly white hair now. The distinguishing look with no rimmed glasses. And today I am rather, I think, aptly wearing an Amnesty T-shirt with a great big banner across the front in this huge Dayglow green square, but with black letters that says "Protect the Human," which obviously its original slogan wasn't around COVID, but I think is kind of rather timely. And I'm 56 still at the moment. Behind us, what can we see? I can move this, you see. So over here we have music stand and drum kit and window. I'll turn him back because it'll make you go blind because it's very white. And then here, a bit this way, we have Joshua. And behind me, there's a picture from me in a band and a physio bed thing, which has currently got stuff on it, making it more of a storage shelf than a physio bed, but hey.
I think every disabled person is turning everything into a storage shelf at the moment. I don't know where all these non-disabled people who've bought all the food up are storing it, but they've obviously, we were saying earlier, got bigger kitchens than us. And we're sitting in front of what I think is my favourite kind of piece of together decoration, which is, let me have a look. I think it's a 3 meter wide, meter and a half deep white canvas banner that we all painted together with a company called Graffiti Nation in I think it was 2014, 2015 as part of our Summer Together program. And it's just got in graffiti representations of all the different art forms we cover, from painting, music, film, poetry, drama, graffiti art, dancing. So I was able to bring that with me, and we're sitting in my home studio with that banner behind us. But all together, although we've all brought our own wheelchairs, we have our virtual sofa of 4. So part of this program is to introduce you to and answer any questions about and promote our Join In From Home program and anything that you're producing at home as part of that program, or indeed anything else. We'd love to see your creative work. We talked a little bit earlier about our clubs program, which is a free outreach program that we run every morning at the moment in East Ham, but we're very much a pop-up organisation. So we've delivered those programs all over the place and now here online and on YouTube. Yes, I think that noise was at your end, which is great. It wasn't at my end for once.
I don't know where it's
But
from.
this is very much broadcasting from home, so please do bear with us. Today, we would usually have a poetry group. We have a pop up poetry club and we run all sorts of activities. But our most regular activity is on a Wednesday morning. We get together, we have a cup of tea, we find a poem to read out of sort of randomly dipping into our poetry library. We choose a subject, we write a poem, and then we have another cup of tea. and we read them to each other. We have been saying this for several weeks, but we're really hoping to take that into a phone group where we will be paying the cost of the phone call. It would be quite easy to sort out if other people were paying, but that's not the way we operate. And I think at the moment, when it's difficult to top up credit, it's particularly important that we make everything free. So there should be some more news of that very, very soon. But you can join in from home by sending us a poem on the theme of Together. I think now we've got to the point where we've read Josh's poem on Together, we've read Robin's poem on Together, we've read a poem of mine that finishes with that kind of message. So it really is over to you as audience. I've just noticed one of our studio lights toppling over, I suspect a cat. There are added cats on this program. There's 3 wandering around this studio, 2 wandering around the studio in Birmingham. We have a gallery linked to the website page where this stream is embedded, and it has various little films on, I think, introducing cats and indeed our homes from past programs, because if you're living in isolation too, and particularly if you're on your own, we do want you to, well, perhaps be a bit more welcome in our private spaces than we would have done previously. Oh, another couple of things just crashed down, but fortunately nothing seems to be catching fire. So I always think I remember you saying that once to a social services assessment. It's very important not to set things on fire. And everybody, it is true. So we also want to point out that, as we always do, it doesn't matter about the spelling, it doesn't matter about the length, it doesn't have to rhyme, it can be on any subject you want to, it doesn't just have to be writing about Together. We've started developing poetry films within the club, and in fact, is her name Zara Banks from the Poetry Film Organisation, did a 2-day workshop with us as part of our film festival a couple of years ago. So we'd love to see some poetry films. There's a couple of examples on my website, including one I did recently called Brexit Made My Biscuits Shrink. And I did that as an animation with stills, which was actually very, very straightforward. And another one called Traveling, where I just grabbed images off the internet. So that's something you can look at for inspiration. And last but by no means least, of course, sign poetry. We would really love to see some sign poems about togetherness or anything else. And I'm pleased to say we've just finally, and of course I do realise it should have been there from the beginning, added some introductory BSL videos to our website. So by the end of this evening, because I think we've got 3 more to put up, there will be a BSL video for every activity in the Join In From Home programme. And then there's already an introductory BSL video to each section of the website, including the page where you can see this embedded. But if you would like to join in with the live chat, then click on the stream that's embedded in the page, go through to YouTube, and then on YouTube you do have the option of the live chat. Julie, I know you always look at kind of anniversaries and what this is the anniversary of, what day it is today.
Oh, we just.
Are you still with us?
Right, we appear to have lost signal from London. Are you back now?
We've certainly got you on the screen, Robin.
Okay, I think it was a momentary glitch.
Yeah, well, I think with all this magic, I mean, of course, in fact, what was actually happening is all these electronic handshakes taking place, probably the length of the globe and back before they get between London and Birmingham. But I shall quickly hand back to Julie.
Thank you. Thank you again, Ju. 50 years ago today, a young postgraduate student set up Earth Day, and he set it up effectively not focusing on one country, but on World Earth Day, so that there would be an opportunity for people all over the world to focus on environmental issues and climate issues, etc. And they would also be able to take part in various activities, drawing attention to the need for conservation. the current state is that I'm just reading from my iPad. 75,000 partners in over 190 countries are driving positive action on the planet, and I think that's well worth a mention. I think, given that we're all locked up anyway, there's obviously a saving to the planet in terms of pollution. It's certainly noticeable in London when the skies are much bluer than they have been for a very long time. I think. Um, and also, we have an opportunity to pause and think about these things perhaps in a little bit more detail. I think young people obviously are leading, and so they should be, because it's their inheritance that they're talking about. But I think us oldsters also need to be able to have a part to play, and to be able to think about these things in terms of changes from when we were young. And there have been many noticeable changes, not all for the good.
I have to say, I mean, other than obviously everything that's said on Together TV, I'm not always entirely trusting of the news. But there was a report, I think about 10 days ago, that said that there'd been a noticeable shrink in the hole in the ozone layer since the
Well,
global lockdown.
that has to be good news. I mean, we're going to come back to nature and the environment later, because Wednesday is also the day when we have Nature Watch with Precious Newman,
Oh, of course, yeah.
which is when we send Julie's assistant's dog out with a camera to show us what the backyards looks like when you don't have a window in the gap. But now it is time, before Josh talks to us about sports and gaming, to have our weekly Paralympics, because all the sport being halted doesn't stop us. We have virtual sport, and because we're a combined arts organisation, as we're described by the Arts Council, we managed to combine this with the International Virtual Teddy Bear Hunt. So this week's London 2012 Teddy, playing for a lovely plastic gold medal given out by the Mayor of Newham in 2012, is called Joey. Joey is a sort of fairly, well, I don't think she'd like to be called a fairly normal teddy bear, but a fairly average teddy bear. She's got a little white blouse on. She's got an old fashioned brown felt schoolgirl outfit. And she's got a little orange ribbon tied around her waist. And many women, but not men out there, will recognise this as a description of the famous Shallow School uniform from the series of 59 books by Eleanor Brent Dyer, which actually ran, can you believe, guys, from 1925 to 1970, and were then all reprinted in paperback right through the 90s and are still very popular today. So Eleanor is the London 2012 representative. Who's representing Birmingham 2022 today?
Okay, today we have a dragon. It's a young dragon. He's been known, he's had a bit of a cold and he's got the nickname Hot Snot. He's a blue dragon, and unusually for blue dragons has sort of shimmering gold and violet under wings, which obviously camouflage him when you're looking up at the sky because it refracts the light.
And for anybody watching who says that's not a teddy bear, what would you say?
Fight.
Three other people look completely blank. Of course it's a teddy bear.
And
we'll move swiftly on from that then.
Right, and the medal today is a genuine CP World Games 1986 in Belgium gold medal. So there you go.
I know. I have this feeling that even if we carry on this program for, well, let's just say a very long time, you won't run out of medals, whereas we'll still be coming back to the old plastic one. So the first thing, well, we should explain, we can't do this sport ourselves, so we delegate it to Wind Up Clockwork Toys. This week's competitors are in the racing granny category of Paralympic sport, being little wind-up racing grannies in power wheelchairs and helmets, which of course is also breaking, I think, the sports rules because they should be in manual wheelchairs, but I would just have to push them down a slope, and that might not be quite so much fun. Although I've got 2 wheelchair using Barbies, so maybe another time.
Oh, then we've got
So
somewhere.
we have filmed, or at least I have filmed, the race in advance, which I then have to find on this very wonderful system. I'm going to hide us for a minute, but before I do, oh, that's all gone again. All right, so bearing with us. All of our little staging things have temporarily disappeared. So I'm going to keep talking, and I'm going to ask you, Robin, are you going to choose a red granny or a blue granny?
I'm going to have to go with blue because that's half of the colours of my favourite football team, being Queen's Park Rangers. For those people who don't know, they are actually a football team.
And you feel confident in your choice of blue?
Well, no, because if
because they didn't perform anything
they'll
like Queen's
draw,
Park Rangers, they're going to be winning for
most of it,
and then draw at the end. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, while this video is kind of very slowly failing to load again, why don't you carry on with the sports report, and then we will come back to it. But remember, you have chosen blue.
Okay.
Yeah. So, thanks. We've been kind of trying to keep up to date with various things that are happening. That's not distracting at all. In kind of sport and Paralympic news and things, actually, there's not a huge amount of things going on at the moment. But one of the things that might be kind of interesting to people that are watching or listening is that Disability Sport USA have launched a program called Adapt at Home. And they're putting out a series of videos on their YouTube channel, which I believe is Disabled Sport USA. And that has kind of home workouts and discussions around activities to do at home. There's some videos that take you through kind of deep breathing exercises. And they are kind of typically hosted by kind of US Paralympians. Kind of the idea is to get their, when one person does it, to kind of, get their other kind of sports friends to then kind of contribute as well. So I started that recently, and there's a kind of good catalogue of videos to kind of flick through, to whether it is for kind of deep breathing and things that are kind of less physically intensive, through to kind of home workouts with Paralympians. So that might be a good resource, and we can put the links up for that.
Actually, I mean, interesting enough, Tracy, my wife, Josh's mum, said to me earlier, actually, we were talking about stuff we're doing with swimmers online. Actually, had we looked at diaphragmatic breathing as an exercise? I said, well, to be honest, most swimmers almost automatically diaphragmatically breathe, because that's how you breathe when you're swimming.
What does that mean?
So essentially, it means like a lot of us. I mean, it might be something really useful for people who are together, members, watchers, whatever, who may be less mobile and may have compromised breathing capabilities. And a lot of the time, a lot of people breathe really shallowly, and you just breathe in and out through your nose, and you kind of only breathe to about here. I mean, obviously it's going in and out of your lungs, but it's driven from the upper part of your body, whereas diaphragmatic breathing is about learning to feel your tummy and breathing from your tummy. So you be like that, and you'll feel your tummy go out. So you're almost blowing up your tummy with air, like that.
And it's a very natural way to breathe, isn't it? I remember when I first learned to, again, because I've got some reduced lung capacity, about how to breathe properly, I had this sort of flashback to being a child, and then you get very conscious about having a fat tummy, which, of course, I think if you've got a spinal curvature, so your tummy sticks out anyway, maybe makes you a bit more self conscious. But then you almost deliberately teach yourself to breathe without your tummy moving, and yet that's the best way to breathe. I should flag up, if you look at the Join In From Home Dance Club, we have a link to a warm up. Well, I say a warm up, it's very much a kind of gentle chair based, very much about breathing and relaxation and just very gently getting the muscles working that you would use for a wheelchair. That is a video produced by Folk in Motion, one of our associate companies, and that's embedded with a link in the dance club program. I think the two combined could work really well, and I'm sure I'm not the only person who's looking at COVID-19 and thinking, well, I could really do with kind of getting my lungs as
Yeah,
full as they can
absolutely.
possibly get, but also to relax. Going back to the poetry club, we quite often do that kind of breathe, same warm up that we use in Folk in Motion at the poetry club. And again, what we say to people is if you're performing, if you're reading a poem or you're acting, being able to get the words out all depends on your breathing. And I used to get told a lot that by the end of my sentence, nobody could hear my words. So I think breathing has made quite a big difference to that, although microphones also help, of course.
Yeah, cool.
And then kind of, I know last week we talked a lot around kind of the round of gaming, and it was more focused on kind of console gaming and a little bit of kind of things that you can do, not even book kind of I Spy and things like that. You kind of need no equipment for really, other than maybe kind of the pen for scorekeeping if you're competitive like we are. I think one of the things that we kind of didn't really touch on a lot last week is kind of mobile games and things that you can play on your phone, you know, if you don't have access to games consoles, or you are kind of, you know, by yourself, which I think playing I Spy with one person can get a little bit easy.
Or schizophrenic.
But yeah, kind of, you know, if you do have a smartphone, there are a huge variety of kind of games available, from, you know, puzzle games and kind of, you know, things to do with Sudoku, right through to knockoffs of Bejeweled that seem to be everywhere, and kind of Juice Jam and Candy Crush things, and then things that are just completely mindless, but are just kind of quite interesting, you know, fun to play for half an hour, which is what I normally do when I'm trying to distract myself from having work to do. And yeah, there is, if you can think of it, it probably exists as an app somewhere. And I think a really good thing around a lot of those games is that they are kind of entirely free to play. You may have to watch quite a lot of adverts, but there is no kind of requirement for any kind of investment in them.
Yeah, I think that's a really good warning point. I've been invited to take part in some Zoom conferences with the Mayor of Newham, with the rest of the voluntary sector. And somebody reported last week that one of their clients had, I think, in that you get these in-app purchases and they're
Yeah,
quote only
that's the danger.
99p. Yeah, and I think this person, without realizing it, had already in lockdown built up, I think, a bill of £650. So my rule is, if it says in-app purchases, I just don't load it at all, because there's just so many great ones and can be the real old fashioned. I think one of my favorites is called Unblock Me, which is really just about moving kind of virtual bricks around
Yeah.
until another brick can come out. And there's thousands and thousands and thousands of them, and all sorts of different levels. So it can be very straightforward, but I think that's a really good point, Josh. You've got to make sure that they genuinely are free, because I think, yeah, none of us are as well organized or quite as with it as we usually are, that we don't have our same structure or our same schedules. We might indeed, like me, have memory problems and not really remember. We've kind of racked up all these things before. So yeah, let's all just focus on everything that's free, because there's an awful lot of it. And I think at the moment there's quite a lot of people inventing games. But to bring this to a close for now, we're going to put this in the stream. One good thing about my short-term memory is I don't actually know who wins this race either. So I'm genuinely not able to kind of bias you, but let's put it on and then solo it. It's a very, very short sprint, so we will soon know who gets the medal. Birmingham 2022 with the little blue dragon, or Joey the teddy bear for London 2012.
I feel there was definitely some race interruption towards the start there.
I think that's Joey in the medal again. I'm just going to pass the medal over, Julie.
I'm sorry.
Maybe if you got yourself a proper teddy, that would make life a little bit easier. I'm going to show a film in due course, and again, it's about getting it to upload again. But it's from our other associate company called Act Up Newham, and they're producing work every week, and we're screening it here. You can also see it on their YouTube channel, or you can click on the embedded links in our highlights gallery for Together Unlocked as well. Is Joey okay up there? She's slightly leaning, but her medal looks good, even if it is the same old plastic one that all of them.
Just rub it in. It's fine.
But I just wanted to come in first, and I just want to see if I can get this picture up. It doesn't want to show it, but that was, and we'll come back to this on Friday, a photo of Rob Denoy's Temple, who we sadly heard has passed away in New York. Rob is one of the few male disabled artists of colour that we've programmed successfully at Together 2012. I think everybody's aware that the barriers that artists of colour face are kind of many and varied, and even more so if you're disabled. But in 2014, we were delighted to host, with the help of Dada Fest in Liverpool, a great international act called Crip Hop Nation. And Crip Hop Nation, which was founded by Leroy Moore, had artists performing in Newham at the Old Town Hall from the USA, Africa, and I believe one other country. I'm going to go through later the computer that has the recordings and photographs on from the 2014 performance, and then we'll be putting up a tribute. I know this follows the sad news on Monday about Lynn Levitt's passing, but Julie and I were saying it's really important that these artists are remembered. You know, we all want to stay home, stay creative and stay well, but it's not possible for everybody. And I just think it's really important that we celebrate their work and keep their memories alive. And I'm sure we'll be having this year's Together 2020 Disability History Month Festival in November and December, tributes to both those artists. But yeah, we were very sorry to hear that. So rest in peace, Rob, and our hearts really go out to the rest of Crip Hop Nation. So on a slightly lighter note, I now hope to show in the stream Happy Easter, which is a production by Act Up Newham. And thank you again, Act Up Newham, both for your individual contributions and for these group pieces, which are just great.
Happy Easter! Oh.
It's Easter. I'm going outside to get an Easter egg.
I wanted to go and look for eggs with my friends. but the doors closed. I can't go out.
Oh, I wanted to go to church on Sunday, but my stupid phone is not working.
Oh, this year I won't be enjoying my Easter holidays because I'm stuck in bed due to the coronavirus lockdown. Oh,
Thanks the lockdown ain't that bad. I'm staying happy and positive.
Oh, that would be to me in Chinese.
I'm not gonna call it Happy Easter. I'm gonna call it Depressed Easter. This is so depressing because of the coronavirus.
I want my friend happy.
I painted eggs for my friends.
Good idea. Send to my friends. Magic! Oh.
I'm staying happy and not my friend remember me.
never mind. My friend sent me Easter egg. Look, I have so many Easter eggs. Ha 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 ha. I'm going to enjoy the Easter holidays in bed eating Easter egg.
Oh my God, my friend sent me a happy Easter egg, a magic Easter egg. I'm sure that will keep me happy, but I just have to see about that.
Ah, I've got an Easter egg for my friends. If I go outside and I'm going to catch a cold for coronavirus, so I'm not going to enjoy my egg. So that means I need to stay at home so I can enjoy my Easter egg and my 2 cream egg chocolates.
I go to the night friends or night family, but I got the Easter egg, so I know that my friends are thinking of me.
Happy.
Happy
Easter.
So thank you very much again for that, ACT UP Newham. I think we're going to have to ask ACT UP whether they're accepting new members now or not until things are over, but they're certainly doing a very good job on Zoom.
Oh, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so another thing that we wanted to flag up with the Join In from Home program is it offers lots of opportunities to send films to us. We're encouraging people to make a film on the theme of home, which can be an animation, a comedy, a drama, a documentary. And we're actually going to have a special award for the best of those at our film festival in December, which this year is definitely going to go ahead, but will be entirely virtual rather than partially virtual. We're also encouraging people to make dance films, films of their sock puppets, or just about anything else they can think of. A lot of us are very new to this technology in terms of things like Zoom. And Julie's been asked by ACT UP to put together some tips when you're doing these kind of multiple phone calls. So I'm going to hand over to Julie, and she's just going to tell us a little bit more about what she would advise to get the best results.
Thank you. It's like I'm the queen of home videos. Effectively, it's very, very simple. A lot of us aren't, we're not used to doing this sort of thing on our phones, partly because some of us haven't had phones that could be previously. But if you can, and your phone does record videos, remember to hold it sideways. Um, think about your television set, and it's rectangular. It goes sideways, and that's the best way to make sure that the films that you're shooting are suitable to be edited and to be shown on the screens, etc., etc. Also, it makes it more difficult to see things properly if you're going from one scene which is upright and in a portrait mode and the other in a landscape mode. It interrupts the flow effectively. And the other one is be careful of curtains. Now, I know that sounds funny, but if the curtains are open, then the bright light from outside can make it difficult to see your face properly. Also, if you have a light on straight behind you, the same thing happens. Your face disappears. Um, have a think about how the lights work on a stage. They're on your face from the front and from the side. But very rarely do you ever, if you go to the theatre or an actor, you very rarely ever have lighting from the back, and it's only ever really for a special effect. And just finally, just think about the sound. What are you trying to record? Is it indoors? Is it outdoors? If it's outdoors, you're going to get an awful lot of background noise. So think about maybe taking some photographs outdoors and doing the narrative or the talking bit indoors. Having said that, if you're indoors, make sure to shut the windows because, again, the microphone on your phone, although it's very small, is very, very sensitive and can pick up all sorts of noises that we're not even aware of that are there. And that can be puppies scratching at doors or neighbors' music loud or something like that. But if you've got the windows shut and the doors are shut in the room that you're in, then that does help to cut down that sort of noise.
I think Josh has scribbled something. Well, he has, and I think it says, "I have some Zoom tips from Linda."
Oh.
Go for it, Josh.
Yeah, no, it's kind of when you were talking around, the boom of Zoom, if you like. One of the things that I've got to have to do in the coming weeks is I have it's called a Viva. It's a spoken exam, basically, which normally would be done in person, but it's now being done over Zoom. So I spoke to a friend of mine that has done one over Zoom, and she kind of had some tips around kind of video conferencing and tips for using Zoom. So if people are kind of interested in that, that's something we could potentially talk about. Similar things to what Julia's saying around kind of lighting, where you sit, kind of what's in the background, making sure your microphone works and things like that. And then also, if you are kind of doing meetings, at least dress the top half of you up. Just because it helps you kind of focus a little bit more as well.
I think it's very naughty, but I saw something in the media a couple of days ago where a child was supposed to be taking part in an online class by Zoom, and they'd actually taken a screenshot of themselves and pasted it in and gone off and started playing with the dog, which probably isn't the kind of thing you should advise, but at least it didn't sound like they needed any help with it.
No, I think they've got yeah.
I think part of the difficulty is what the setup is. I mean, I suspect you've got a window behind you because your setup is fixed, whereas I've been able to move laptops over to what would be a window behind us, but in fact has got everything closed off. But it means that we've got a very kind of precarious setup of kind of laptops perched on different things, and indeed, like I say, lights crashing over without, fortunately, too much kind of bad effect. I mean, it might not be the perfect lighting, but something that Hannah from ACT UP had pointed out is if you're using your phone, it's really difficult if you haven't got a set stand or something, and it's not the kind of thing people set out to buy in advance is a phone stand. What I recommended was either using, if you've got like a feather pillow, a really soft pillow is a really good, easy way to just embed your phone, put it onto selfie, and then record, or a soft cushion, anything that you can really kind of is is malleable enough so you can move it around to hold the thing in the way that you want it to be pointing, but with enough flexibility just to be able to kind of position it and hold it. So I don't know if you've got any other thoughts about how people can set phones up.
I mean, in terms of kind of setting it up to film, yeah, kind of yourself or Zoom things, yeah. I mean, just kind of propping it up against something, TV remotes, the kind of rubber on a TV remote button makes a good kind of grip to stick to the back of your phone, if you're not going to kind of jostle it around too much. And then kind of in terms of filming things, just kind of going back to what Julie was saying, I stole this from when I was at work a few years ago. A guy came in to do some filming to make a kind of promotional film. And he had his lovely kind of fancy, kind of film camera and tripod. And he's running around holding it upside down with the kind of tripod legs folded out and holding the bottom of it. And I kind of looked at him, he does know that's the wrong way around, right? And I kind of spoke to him afterwards and I was like, why have you got the tripod upside down? And he said that because the weight of the camera at the bottom, when you hold it, it kind of means that it almost stabilizes itself because it doesn't swing very much. So if you are looking to kind of film something with your phone, if you happen to have a tripod, you can use that. Or if not, if you could kind of securely sellotape your phone to the end of a ruler or something like that, you can get a similar sort of effect where the kind of pendulum weight of the phone will actually help you keep it still if you are kind of struggling to, if you're shaking a little bit kind of holding the phone, or if you struggle with grip things, that might be a kind of hack that you could potentially try.
And I can demonstrate, I was going to say, I can demonstrate right now what happens if you change to a camera with the light behind you. We go black.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is a good time for us to introduce our next film, which is Nature Watch with Precious Newman, where Precious goes out into the backyard and shows us what we're missing. Precious doesn't usually get through the cat flap without knocking the camera over, and today was no exception. I think last week she'd managed to film the entire lot upside down, which was easy to kind of reverse. Mostly it's kind of on its side today. What I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to take you out of the stream for a minute and put Precious in, but I'm going to keep Julie on the microphone so she can give us a little bit of a commentary.
No worries.
Thanks, Ju. I haven't seen this film, so it's going to be very ad-lib. So are we doing it from now? Sorry, I thought we were doing it from the beginning. Okay, Precious has managed to get out, and her camera is actually sideways up, I think, and is being knocked about. She's come face to face with her brother. She's looking in the window into the living room at me. It's lovely. She's looking around in the flower pots and sitting in the sun and enjoying herself. Now she's having a little mooch around again, having a good old shake. Actually, that stabilizes the camera slightly, although she's still very much at a tilt. Oh, she does like the sun, and she's now going back over to the door, and everything seems to have slowed down. Oh no, she's heading towards the herb garden to do a little bit of digging to help Ju. And there's a rabbit, a hare, moon-gazing hare, and I think she takes quite a lot of inspiration from that. She's sort of sitting there, sun-gazing, although she mustn't look at the sun directly. I think she knows that instinctively. But she does enjoy having a little mooch around and having a look around to see what's what. But she's always liked sitting in the sun from when she was a very small puppy. It's quite interesting because we can get her head in this time on account of the strange angle of the film. And she seems to be just sitting in the sun, having a nice time. She's still looking across at the moon gazing hare. I think just making sure that it hasn't moved, probably. You know, she's looking at. It's very nice to see her face because you wouldn't ordinarily. Oh, yes, let's have a bark. Yes, yes, there's a bark about. The other dogs need me to bark. They need that sort of support. And it's interesting how ears go up at that point as well. Looking for a response, I think. And she's looking around to see if I'm going to stop her. And she's hoping that I will, because when I stop her, she comes indoors and she gets a treat. And yes, sure enough, there we are.
Thanks for that, Julie. Let's bring everybody back into the stream.
We're here.
Hello.
And here we all are, and we've changed sides. So, looking at the screen, London is now on the left side and Birmingham is on the right. I'm always slightly appalled when I look at the state of the outside of my house, thinking, oh dear, if I can't get anybody to do any work this year because it's not practical when we're isolating, it's all going to fall to bits. But on the other hand, it's saving me a fortune, so that's probably a good thing. The thing that I've also been doing is looking out the window and taking photographs of the various shrubs in blossom. It's a very small garden, which is why we're not sitting out there. We're only about 2 feet away from the next door's back door, and the other side. They seem to spend a lot of time in the garden without realizing that it's impossible to be 2 meters away from the people in the next garden. But yeah, there's a Twitter. If you do social media, there's a hashtag that says Blossom Watch, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's also on other social media and must be on Instagram. And it's very much encouraging people to celebrate blossom in the way the Japanese do, because traditionally the Japanese have all sorts of festivals and celebrations around the cherry blossom that comes out around this time. And I think part of the celebration is the fact that it doesn't last for very long. It's a very kind of beautiful but very quick thing to happen. And this year they're doing virtual blossom watch and it's spread around the world. So if you've got nice blossom in your garden, or indeed you can just see any kind of blossom out of the window, then we'd love to see it. Please do photograph it. Julie, did you have anything to add?
I think Blossom Watch is absolutely perfect on World Earth Day. Just as an aside, I picked up an interesting piece of information about Robin Knox Johnson, who was the first man to circumnavigate the world without stopping. In 1968, he came in successfully. He was the only one actually to finish the Golden Globe race at that time. And he came into Falmouth on the 22nd of April. His boat was only 32 foot, which is ever so small to go around the world in all those sort of dangerous things. And he had all sorts of problems with his navigational stuff, but he is such a good sailor. Why I think it's worth thinking about him at all is because it was something that the whole world was looking at and watching. People were very, very interested at that time because he was the first one to do it. But also significantly, he's a man who has tremendous generosity. He gave his prize money away immediately to somebody who hadn't finished. To the family of somebody who hadn't finished, who had died. But he also, over the years, set up all sorts of training opportunities for young people to learn how to sail. He is a lovely, lovely man. He's one of my heroes.
Thanks, Julie. And although it's not possible at the moment, I think there's more and more opportunities for disabled people to sail, both sailability and also tall ships. We're nearly at the end of our time today. I can't believe it. We're coming up to Friday yet again. Friday is our dressing up to go out to stay in day. And I've already had a very wonderful contribution from Jade Sempare. So thank you for that if you're watching, Jade, and keep them coming. Dressing up to go out to stay in is where we all dress up in an outfit for an occasion. It can be any kind of occasion, not this kind of formal Friday evening dress type thing. And of course, it can be entirely imaginary because any kind of journey is imaginary at the moment. So if you want to travel to Mars or the bottom of the ocean or round the world in 80 days, dress up to go out to stay in, get a video or a photo, send it to us at tv@together2012.org.uk, and we will be delighted to show it to our viewers. The final thing I wanted to say this week before I hand over to you to say goodbye from Birmingham, and I finish with a poem yet again, is that it's Lesbian Visibility Week. And I was thinking quite bitterly about this because I'm one of the co-chairs of Regard, which is the National Disabled People's Organisation for the LGBTQI plus community. That took a lot of practice to say, I must tell you. And we're very, very, very invisible in the LGBTQI plus world as disabled people. And I sat there and I thought, oh, I should write a poem about that. And then I realized I had written a poem about being invisible at least 22 years ago and dug it out. So when everybody else has said goodbye, we will finish with The Revenge of the Invisible People. Julie?
Thank you for taking part today, you guys in Birmingham, and our lovely ACT UP people, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Okay, over to us. I mean, I've got a poem if you want it as well. Do it if we have time.
Do you have a cheerful poem, Robin?
Oh, hold on. Yeah, actually, there's this one.
Well,
Just say goodbye. I'll just check this one.
While he reads to see if it is cheerful or not, yeah, I'll just kind of
well,
say.
if it's cheerful, I'd like to finish with his after mine, but let's have a goodbye from you anyway, Josh.
Yeah, so yeah, goodbye, and hopefully we'll see you all on Friday.
Well, we certainly hope so, or there'll be a big gap in the programme, and good luck with the PhD work before then.
Yeah.
Robin, would your poem be cheerful?
Yes.
As poems go, because of course nobody really writes poems when they're happy. Well, in that case, I will say goodbye and read this poem, and then I will hand over to Robin for the final word. So this is The Revenge of the Invisible People. At that point, I was really thinking that I was writing lyrics without music as opposed to poems. But we're very kind of rap oriented, and indeed I do like a bit of grime in Canning Town. So now I just think to hell with it, they're just poems or words. We're hard to see, we're hard to say. If we don't have names, we go away. The revenge of the invisible people. Fading away, I'm fading away. If you cannot see me, how can I stay? Now you see me, now you don't. Now you hear me, now you won't. The revenge of the invisible people. Fading away, I'm fading away. If you cannot see me, how can I stay? You don't want me in your head. You would rather I was dead. The revenge of the invisible people. Fading away, I'm fading away. If you cannot see me, how can I stay? Don't speak the unspeakable. Don't think the unthinkable. The revenge of the invisible people. Fading away, I'm fading away. If you cannot see me, how can I stay? Shadows on the street, shadows on the beach, gaps in the crowd. Whisper it loud. The revenge of the invisible people is, it's your loss. Thanks from London.
Yes, thank you, London. And we will finish with, yeah, I think it's almost timely. So this is called Discovery. Sitting around in a half-lit room, feeling rather tall, sharing ideas, shooting the breeze, kicking back and feeling at ease. Unearthing myself in a small piece of mind, released by friends new to find, unleashing ourselves in space and time, ripening fruit, blossoming sublime. Listen to our story. We are not searching for glory, just looking in on ourselves to discover who we are. No, us, as we really are. We've got lives to live, fashioning our futures from our perspective. See our strengths, see our wants, see us for who we really are. The same people as yesterday, finding ourselves and shouting, hooray! Thank you. Good afternoon.